A lot of times people will buy businesses because of a specific type of license that's associated with that specific corporation, with that specific LLC, and you can't really detach the two. So if you bought the business and the assets without that license, you may not have the same value in that business. So, in approaching any type of business, there's not just a black or white. You need to do this or you need to do that. You really got to look at, well, what's the value in that company? Is it something that can be detached from that corporate entity? Or if it can't be, then you really need to look at, well, okay, we need to buy the corporation, we need to buy the LLC. So how are we going to mitigate that risk of what's out there that we don't know about?
Hey, welcome listeners. Today, I have the distinct honor and privilege of having as a guest on my show today, someone who's in high demand in our local area in the Chesapeake, Virginia Beach area of Virginia, John McCormick, who is the owner and founder of McCormick Law Consulting firm here in town. But John's done a ton of things. He's been the past city planning commissioner for 5 years. In addition to his law firm, he's been the past chair of the Rock Solid Foundation here in town, which is an organization that impacts in a super positive way children and families with pediatric cancer. And on top of that, now he decided to sign up for our local school board and was just elected there, and has a family and has won a whole host of awards, been a lawyer for 13 years, and is passionate about entrepreneurship and business ownership. And that's what we talk about here. And I just felt like John today could add tremendous amount of value to our listeners in his area of expertise. And we're going to talk about a lot of things, but specifically today, we're going to dive into this concept of buying a business or selling a business, and how do you structure it? Is it an asset purchase or a stock purchase, or how do you go about that and why? And then we'll have a lot of fun. So, hey, John, welcome to the show today.
Yeah. Hey, Paul. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me. I know we've got some similar passions and are like-minded, so I'm excited to talk with you.
Yeah, this is great. So, well, real quick, I always like to kind of start out, John, and with you've clearly got a passion for business ownership and entrepreneurship, and you're an attorney, successful in the area. Tell us how you got from, did you always want to be an attorney, or was it, how did your kind of path go to get where you are?
Yeah, well, so I come from a family of attorneys, and my dad was an attorney. He passed away when I was a kid, but my stepdad is also an attorney. So I've always had attorneys in my family, and so it was somewhat the natural thing to do. Now, I really thought I would end up going to law school and either becoming a politician, which I'm on school board now, so I didn't expect that, or really get into business, because business is my passion. And even shortly into my law career, I was looking for opportunities to start a different type of business and use my legal knowledge to launch a non-legal business. Ultimately, I stayed in the practice of law and decided to start my own law firm instead of going into some different industry that I may not have as much experience with.
Well, no, okay, great. So you're able to marry the skill that you've learned in this sort of DNA in your family, right, of law, with your passion of business and entrepreneurship. And to me, what I do is I fund entrepreneurs, and so I see a lot of different businesses. It gives me great ideas, and it's just like, wow, that's really neat. And as an attorney, I can only imagine the things that you've seen and managed over the years.
Yeah, I think so. In my early stages of practicing law, I'd say for the first 5 or 6 years, I represented a lot of small business owners as an associate at another firm, and I think that's what really sparked my passion for entrepreneurship, because I got to see the inner workings of what a CEO and a founder goes through, the obstacles and challenges that they face, and a lot of times they were calling us when they were facing really difficult situations and they needed some guidance and some help, and we were able to help them. But in that process, I got to really become friends with a lot of entrepreneurs, pick their brains, learn their passions, their strategies, their wins, their losses, and it just ignited this passion of business in me. And so I started listening to podcasts and listening to books, and I'm a big Audible fan and podcast fan, and so I just dove in for probably, I would say, 2 or 3 years in just saturating myself in the business world, because I didn't really come from a business background. I didn't study business in college, and so I didn't really know anything. So for probably 2 or 3 years, I kind of just self-taught myself entrepreneurship and business through podcasts, through books, and through my experiences of working with business owners. And I just knew at that point I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a business owner. So what's next? What business am I going to start? And maybe we'll get into this. I tried to start a few that failed, and then then I said, oh, maybe I just should stick into the legal world. Maybe that's where I'm better serving.
Well, that's kind of funny, and I do want to unpack your passion about business ownership. What it is about that? Is it the creativity? Is it you want to build something, or what is it you think, if you can kind of boil it down, that drives that desire?
Yeah, I think it. I mean, I think it is the creativity. Overall, it's to me, it's fun to find a problem and then try to solve it. So in the business world, if you're going to start a successful business, you don't want to just do the same thing everyone else is doing in the same way everyone else is doing it, because what do you have to set yourself apart? So to me, it was looking at industries, and now really looking at the legal industry and saying, okay, what can I do that's different, that's maybe more efficient, that's more effective, and then can I structure a business around that? Can I structure a successful business around that? So it was that challenge of finding something, a pain point, a demand that was being unmet, and then trying to build something around it, build a system around it where you could either meet that demand or fix that problem. And so that's what it just gets me excited. That whole creative process, that critical thinking process to try to solve problems and make things a little bit more efficient is just a ton of fun.
And to do it in a unique way, it sounds like,
Yeah,
right? What other people are doing, right?
yeah, exactly. Do it differently. Try to, that's take that risk, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Well, any honest entrepreneur that will tell you, I mean, I guess every once in a while there's somebody that gets really lucky and it's a fluke. But the reality of the matter is, there's no free lunch when it comes to business ownership, right?
Oh, no way. No, you gotta put in the work and be willing to fail.
Well, I mean, you think about, I don't know what your cost was to go to law school and all that, but I mean, to learn that business, that industry, you had to invest a ton of time, a lot of money. You gave up a lot of opportunity to make money while you were doing it. So, I mean, that's not that much different than someone putting money in a business that they start. Maybe they bootstrap it or whatever, and it never gets off the ground and they fail or whatever. They have to learn. You're paying whatever you do, you're going to pay a price, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. You're
Yeah.
definitely gonna pay a price. You're taking a risk one way or the other.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But this idea of the cool thing about entrepreneurs and that mindset of trying to solve a problem, try to find a unique solution, that blue ocean thinking is just it's really what drives us forward, right? And what a great time today with, I mean, people a lot of times lament technology, and I'm not a big technology fan, but wow, there's some opportunity today. It's a crazy world. It's moving fast, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's
Yeah.
always, I mean, there's always new opportunity. It's funny because you'll see, a type of business kind of break into a new industry like Uber or something, and all of a sudden everyone follows and says, let me create the Uber of this, the Uber of that. Same with like Airbnb, and let me create the Airbnb in this, Airbnb of that. So someone comes up with a unique idea, and then there's usually kind of spin-offs in all different types of directions with that same idea. So both are really entrepreneurship, creating the unique idea in the beginning, and then even taking someone else's unique idea and figuring out a different industry or different way that you can apply it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So let's dive into specifically a little bit of your legal skill and what you've learned and the things you've done and so forth. There comes a time for every business. I see it. You get a growing business that wants to expand, maybe buy a competitor or buy an opportunity. We have the silver wave right now. A lot of people are hit that point where they're retiring and they want to sell their business, so their business is for sale. And then you have some. So you've got the buyer and the seller that are looking to do something at some point, and there's different ways to structure that. And I say this, I know it's complicated, and there's not a single answer in every situation, because I sold a business in January 2020 and it happened to be a stock sale, and I didn't think it was going to be a stock sale, but the buying entity wanted to do it that way, and their attorneys, and we were okay with that. But then we're funding another sale right now for a client or an acquisition, and that's an asset purchase is the way they're structuring it. So they all have their different reasons, and I think there's some advantages and disadvantages probably on both sides. But talk a little about, maybe even before you get into that, when should someone seek counsel like you? It's like, if I'm thinking about buying a business or thinking about selling my business, what's involved in this whole sort of process to get to the point where you even make that decision on how you structure it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot goes into it, and we'll kind of run through some of the things that I've worked through with people. Entrepreneurship by acquisition is a really cool area where you can acquire a business and become a business owner and immediately jump into something that already has a playbook, rather than building it from the ground up. And it's no less of an entrepreneur to buy a business than it is to start it from the ground up. And so, in buying a business, you really go through a lot of different things. And like you mentioned, you can buy the stock or the membership interest, let's say in an LLC, or you can buy all the assets. And it's two completely different types of transactions. And there's different questions and there's different factors that would really determine why you would do one versus why you would do the other. The general consensus is if you're buying a business, you just want to buy the assets. And that's kind of, the majority of time, if you're a buyer, you just want to buy the assets because you don't want their corporation, you don't want their LLC because you don't know what they did with it. Did they pay their taxes right? Is there liability out there? Someone threatening to sue them? You buy that LLC, you buy that corporation, you're going to be dealing with the skeletons that are in that closet of that corporate entity after closing. So, generally what you'll say, the general consensus is, okay, well, just buy the assets, buy all the equipment, buy the fixtures, buy the customer list, buy the goodwill, and buy the intellectual property, and then put it in your own entity, put it in your own bucket, your LLC, your corporation, and that way you don't have to worry about the skeletons in that company's closet. But that doesn't always work. So it's not always just as easy as looking at it that way, because there could be really valuable, really valuable importance or tangible asset in that entity that you can't take away from it. For example, a specific type of contract that's not assignable, or if it's has the entity has a government contract, maybe that can't be assigned to a buyer. So you're really buying the value that's specifically related to that entity, and in something like that, you can't detach the two, and you really need to keep it as part of that corporation. You need to do a stock purchase, or you need to do an LLC purchase, because you're not going to realize the full value of that company without having the entity itself. That could be licensing. A lot of times people will buy businesses because of a specific type of license that's associated with that specific corporation, with that specific LLC, and you can't really detach the two. So if you bought the business and the assets without that license, you may not have the same value in that business. So, in approaching any type of business, there's not just a black or white. You need to do this or you need to do that. You really got to look at, well, what's the value in that company? Is it something that can be detached from that corporate entity? Or if it can't be, then you really need to look at, well, okay, we need to buy the corporation, we need to buy the LLC. So how are we going to mitigate that risk of what's out there that we don't know about? Whether that's through indemnifications, through escrowing funds for a period of time, statute of limitations. There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of mitigate some of that risk legally by having a good advocate craft the documents in a way that's going to help protect you long term.
When does that, that's a good point about the unassignable contracts and licensing issues. I had not really considered that. So when in the process, so if let's say I'm going to buy a business, because the concept of entrepreneurship by acquisition, I think that's a great growth strategy. I mean, I have people all the time that are building their nest egg through like real estate acquisition. They're building their portfolio, but wow, what if you could build a portfolio of businesses, right, that grow over time, right? And cash flow that way. It's just another way to skin that cat, or maybe you do both. When should I engage you, and what should I be thinking about up front when I see this business and I say, hey, that looks like a pretty successful business, and I have some interest in that. Maybe I know a little bit about it or whatnot. Should I come see you right away and let's have a conversation about this, or what questions should I be asking myself, do you think?
I mean, I do think it's helpful to have legal counsel up front so that you can ask questions that you need to ask at the very beginning, and you don't waste your time or get too far down the road and you've committed to something even unintentionally that you shouldn't have. So I think as soon as you are even considering like an LOI or letter of intent on a business, and you're starting to evaluate that business and the type of transaction, the structure of the transaction, that's really done on the front end. Whether it's a stock sale versus an asset sale, most of that is articulated in a letter of intent. And so you don't want to wait until you've committed to one way or the other. You've already committed or given your word that you're going to structure a transaction in a certain fashion. I really think you need to have that advice on the front end. So as soon as you're really considering making an offer on a business or entertaining an LOI on a business, I think it's invaluable to have an attorney that can ask some questions that maybe you're not thinking about. In the real estate world, you might you might need to look at things like zoning or different types of things if you're buying raw land of can you do what you want to do with this property? I see that mistake often made of you'll buy this property, you've got an idea of what you're going to put there, but zoning's not going to allow you. So you want to figure out how am I going to solve that equation?
So no, that's a good point. And so getting those questions up front, I'm a firm advocate of that too. Of an ounce of prevention is worth a gallon of treatment. And having gone through this myself and seeing other people go through it, boy, there are so many questions that I'm a business guy, but the only thing I know about law is when I used to watch the paper chase growing up. It's like, okay, this professor hates me and he's never going to call on me. Okay, that's about all I know.
Right.
But yeah, but having gone through it seriously, there are so many like those questions that you just don't come up in day to day in your thought process of running a business or growing. I'm thinking about growing and increasing cash flow and hiring employees. I'm not thinking about all those little nuances that like a zoning, like you mentioned, or other things. So what about this on the flip side? If we turn to the seller, let's say that I want to sell my company. Do I have a say in how the buyer structures that?
You do, to the extent that you can say no to an offer if you don't want it structured in a certain way. So I think having a mindset of how do you want to sell this at the front end is going to be important. Obviously you could deviate from that depending on the type of offer or what type of offers you're receiving. But I think understanding this is the type of business that is typically going to be an asset sale, or this is the type of business that really needs to be a stock sale or a membership interest sale. It's good to know that. So when someone approaches you with an offer, it makes sense, and you've already got some context on. Okay, we've already really considered what most buyers are going to want in this type of industry with this type of business. So you're prepared and you understand what you're receiving. And if it's something outside of what you expected, then maybe that might red flag it and make you kind of scrutinize that offer a little bit more.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, again, preparation up front and kind of knowing what you have to put out on the market. Is that something that you do that typically that you as an attorney or an attorney will do? It will help me kind of think through that up front, or is that somebody I need to engage somebody who's more in the business of selling businesses, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I think it could be either. I mean, some people are selling businesses with business brokers, and a good business broker is going to likely know to some extent, what options there are and be able to explain that. So I think having a good business broker that perhaps is listing the business for sale can be a really valuable individual or team member to have in selling a business. But if you're getting into it, again, I think it's helpful to have an attorney ready once you get offers, and then also being able to ask some questions and for the seller to be able to ask some questions early on, just so that they understand what they're getting into and things to expect. Because if you can kind of navigate, you can navigate situations a lot different, a lot better if you've already pre-planned some of the things that might happen or things that might come up.
Right, right. Okay, so we talk about this, we get in this process, and we've kind of had our upfront sort of we expectations, and what is it the saying in war? It's like the best laid plans, go out the window in the first shot. So, where does a negotiation piece? I mean, that's what you do, right? So if I'm engaging to buy a business or sell one, I'm not the guy talking to the buyer or the seller, right? I need somebody sort of dispassionate that's going to like represent me, but also keep me out of jail and all that, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll do a lot of those negotiations, especially when it comes to negotiating, terms within the contract. If you're a seller, are you trying to get cash up front? Are you willing to finance part of it? And you're the seller financer. You become the bank, and you're going to be paid over time. How do you mitigate some of that risk and put protections in the collateral and protections in security interests that can help protect you? So yeah, being upfront and having an attorney advocate for you through the process, you can go ahead and solve for some of those things during your negotiation. So here's what's important. Here's a key personnel that's going to need to convey. How do we make sure that that's smooth? And your manager is going to go along with the buyer and stay in the business, because that manager might be very important in the operation. So kind of thinking through all those things, and an attorney can help you negotiate provisions within your contract. They're going to help keep all that intact early on.
Right, right. What are some pitfalls? So let's say we get to the point we engage, we go in contract. Okay, we're gonna buy this business or sell this business. Let's look at it from the buyer standpoint. In your experience, what you've seen over the years, where can things go sideways? I mean, where can we blow this process up?
Yeah, I'll share without disclosing, confidence is the problems I've seen, and because we litigate cases as well, and a lot of the cases we take to court are business related. So we
Yeah,
see the bad in that, and being business litigators helps us be better business transaction
yeah.
facilitators because you know where things go sideways. And so where I've seen things go sideways is one in financials, not scrutinizing financial records close enough. So looking at P&Ls, cash flow statements, and knowing what you're looking at, and having people that know what they're looking at, so that something the wool is not pushed over your eyes, and so the numbers make sense. Because just looking at it and saying, okay, they're profitable, well, why, or why are they not profitable? So looking at the numbers, and I've seen numbers, I would say, done not correctly to inflate the value of the business, and so is what you're looking at right? Is it true? Does it make sense? Does something seem out of line? So attorneys can help you do that. Accountants, CPAs can help you do that, and really scrutinizing the books. The other thing is collateral on the asset. I've seen it where someone sold a business and there was a lien on the collateral, and the buyer didn't know about it, and they didn't do a search to find out if there was a lien on that collateral. So if you're buying a business asset, you're going to want to know, just like if you're buying a piece of real estate, that it's free and clear of all liens, and that you don't have a mortgage on it, you don't have a lien on it. Because if you get that asset and the lien's on it, the lender's going to come to you and say, "Hey, that's mine. Go ahead and give it back to me," and that's not good.
Ah,
Yeah.
how do I make the donuts? You've taken my donut machine.
Exactly. So it's
Yeah.
it's 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 knowing to look at those things, and it's not so much what's there, but what's not there that should be there, and kind of navigating
Mm.
around some of the asking questions that aren't quite apparent.
Mm. Yeah, I've heard the phrase, you can't hear the dogs that don't bark,
Right.
right? So yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point. Thinking about, okay, I don't know what I don't know, so if I don't know what to ask, then something could happen. I could accept or think it's a good deal, and maybe I'm totally missing something where a third party who's seen many of these cases would catch it. Um, So okay, well that's really cool. So you've seen on both sides. So it's I mean at the end of the day though, with buying or selling a business, because I know a lot of times people there's a lot of fear on that, right? I mean, I'm going to invest maybe my 401k to buy a business. Maybe I'm going to take an early retirement or come out of the military and buy a business. Um, I mean, should people be afraid of this process, or I mean, if it's done right, I mean, it seems to me that you should have real good confidence at the end that you've checked every box and looked in just about every closet that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, just like buying real estate, buying a business is a risk. And as long as you take a calculated risk by doing your due diligence and knowing what you're looking at and evaluating the business in the areas that you need to evaluate it in, it could be a great opportunity. I mean, buying a business can really, I've seen so many, retired military folks in this area buy businesses as a second career. You retire from the military, you've got that military pension, and then let's go buy a business and become a business owner. It's a great way to jump straight into business ownership, straight into entrepreneurship, even in industries that you have no experience. Because if it's an existing business and you have that mind and that ability to be a manager, that may be all that business needs. You may not need a specific even skill in that business area. You just need to know how to manage people and manage your books, and you can jump in and be successful. But it's really understanding what you're looking at and being able to see, especially from a financial perspective, and looking at profit and loss statements, is this business really what they're saying it is? Am I going to get into it and say, oh no, there's an expense that I missed, or this revenue wasn't guaranteed? So it's really looking at it from a standpoint of, if once you buy it, you turn the lights on, day one, do you have what you thought you had? So that's just doing your due diligence. If you do your due diligence, then it really can be an awesome experience and a great opportunity.
No, that's great. Great word. And just kind of wrap it up with this idea. So, and I know you've done all kinds of transactions from small ones to really, really big ones, but your typical, take that guy who just retired from the military and he wants to buy a business that's a local business. What kind of timeline does he look at? Is this a 30-day process, a 90-day process, a 12-month process in your experience?
It can really vary depending on the type of business and the type of funding that you're getting, that a buyer might be receiving. So if you're funding it yourself in all cash, you can always do things really as quick as you want. If you're financing it with a bank, especially like with an SBA loan, it may take a little bit longer. It may take 2 or 3 months for the lender to even be in place
Mhm.
to give you that money. So, I think it really depends on the complexity of the business, how long it's going to take you to do your due diligence, to what extent. Is it going to take 30 days? Is it going to take 60 days, 90 days to do due diligence? So it could 30 days to close a transaction would be abnormal. I would say, all in 60 to 90 days, maybe a decent framework on a small size business, but on more complex, bigger transactions, it could easily take 6 months. And then on real estate deals, if you're doing a development deal and you need zoning approval, that might
Mhm.
take a year or even longer. Some of the big real estate projects, when you're piecing together a lot of different
Yeah.
parcels and a lot of different zoning, it could take a couple of years to do that.
Yeah, I'll say my own personal experience. Our it took us a year from the day that we agreed to sell to the day we actually signed, and it could have been a little bit faster, but um, if people aren't that responsive, then that slows the process down too, right? And the whole
Right.
thing. Yeah, and we
Oh
had a
yeah.
lot of that. So, all right, let's switch gears, John. This has been great. Let's talk about something that's near and dear to your heart, and it strikes mine too. Your experience, your history, and you're currently still on the board of directors for the Rock Solid Foundation. Talk about that, the whys, and what it's about, and what you guys are doing, and the impact you're making.
Yeah, so Rock Solid Foundation is a nonprofit founded in Chesapeake, Virginia, and headquartered in Chesapeake, Virginia, really making a national impact. So I've been on the board of directors for, I think, 7 years or so, and I was chairman of the board for the last 2 years, just finished my chairman term in December. And so Rock Solid has two specific ways where they support pediatric cancer families. So our focus is to build hope with families going through the pediatric cancer process, and we build hope in two ways. One, by building play sets. So we build play sets for kids that are fighting cancer, because there's one thing that a kid loses when they're diagnosed with cancer is their ability to play. All of a sudden, they're going through chemotherapy. They can't go in public. They can't go to public parks. And so they need a place to play. So we go in their backyard. We build them a play set so they have a place to play and be a kid, because they're kids first and foremost, and they're going through the biggest tragedy of their life. So we're there to help them have something to do. Number two, we provide what's called ready bags. And these ready bags are it's a backpack full of everything a child and family is going to need for their first 48 hours of diagnosis. So these bags are literally handed by the hospitals to the family right after a diagnosis. And we partner with over 100 hospitals throughout the country, from Virginia to Florida to California, and really everywhere in between. And we ship ready bags to the hospitals, and the hospitals hand them to the families. And the families know that right at that moment, the worst day of their life, there's someone thinking about them, there's someone that cares for them, and they're not alone. And that's really important, because these bags go with the families. You'll see them take their bags to the chemo treatment every single time. There's a tablet in there, there's toiletries in there, there's a blanket in there. There's things that they haven't even thought about that they're going to need. And so that way, Mama Bear and Papa Bear don't have to go home to get a blanket because it's cold, or they don't have to go and grab toiletries. It's right there. They can focus on what's going on in that moment. And so, when I first got on the board, we were helping maybe 100 families a year. We're serving thousands of families a year now, all throughout the country. And our goal is to serve 16,000 families a year, because that's the average number of diagnosis in the United States. So we're getting close. We're getting closer.
Wow, that's so amazing. Thank you for being a part of that. I mean, I personally I've been impacted by that, and I'm just thinking through this process because my daughter, when she was 14 months old, was diagnosed with pediatric cancer with neuroblastoma. And that moment in the hospital, yeah, it's you don't realize it, but you're in a room, and they come in and they drop this diagnosis on you. You think it's just like a bad case of the flu or something, and it's like all of a sudden 4 or 5 people walk into the room, and it's like your world changes. You go from, for me, it was we were at the top of our game, and it was like we went from the top of the mountain to the pit of hell overnight, in an instant. And so doing something like this to help these families is really, really a big deal. And the fact that I believe you're going to get to 16,000 a year, I think that's an amazing goal. I know you told me you're already at 300 to 400 a month right now, so you're well on the way to getting there. So I applaud that and I appreciate that. And hey, is there anything we missed here on this conversation? I know we've talked a lot about, I mean, there's so much more we could talk about, but in this area, or anything in specific that you wanted to say before we wrap up?
I would just say, some of the biggest things that I've learned in business is through failing in business, and I've had some pretty epic failures, and I would not have, I won't take them back now, even if I could. And so, if you're thinking about going into business, if you're thinking about starting a business, buying a business, whatever it might be, it's okay to fail. Do not let failure or the fear of failure set you back or stop you, because if you do, you can take that failure and you'll do something better next time. You'll figure out what you did wrong that time, and try number two, try number three. That one's going to work. Hopefully you'll be fortunate, and the first thing you try will be successful. But for me, it wasn't, and I lost money and ended up having to go a different direction. So it's okay to fail. It's okay to lose money, and that's part of what being an entrepreneur is about. Is being able to overcome that, take what you learned in that process, apply it somewhere else, and do better. So I'd say that's the biggest thing. Is so many people, I've got entrepreneurs or business owners or want to be entrepreneurs that call me, and they're hung up on something that's holding them back. Fear of losing money, fear of losing, just not succeeding. And I think if you can get over that, then you can really find something successful, and use any failure that you face. Even with successful businesses, I make decisions all the time in my law firm that do not work, and I'm like, man, that was a really bad choice. I should not have invested in that. But it's okay. I won't do it again, and I'll do it better next time. So it's just being able to kind of adapt and learn from that.
And you learn along the way too, to get somebody in your staff that's close to you that disagrees with about 80% of things you want to do, right?
Yeah.
As they challenge your thoughts.
Do not put yes people all around you that are just going to agree with you. That is the worst thing you could do. Put someone in there that's going to say, why the heck are you doing that? That's a terrible idea.
That's right. That's right. Then you have to defend your position and really
Yeah.
sell the deal. So no, I couldn't give any better advice, John. That's awesome. So tell us how we can get up with you if we need an awesome attorney to help with business, anything business entrepreneurship related, right? Or even real estate in that.
Yeah, so my office, I've got two offices. My main office is in Norfolk, downtown Norfolk. I've got a small office in Raleigh. We serve business owners all throughout Virginia and North Carolina. You can Google me, John McCormick, McCormick Law. You can go to our website, McCormickPC.com, and yeah, check us out. We love serving business owners. We love being a part of their team. Personally, I just see myself. I love helping business owners make better decisions and have better businesses. And that's if I can do that, I'm happy. So I really enjoy it.
John, that was great. Thanks for giving us some time and some of your wisdom today.
Yeah, appreciate it, Paul. Thanks so much. This has been a pleasure. It's been great.